They say the darkest battles are fought behind closed doors, in silence, where no one is watching. When I was 15 years old, I came terrifyingly close to doing the unthinkable. It's a secret I've carried with me like a shadow, one I've rarely shared, even in anonymous spaces. But tonight, as I scrolled through stories like this, something in me stirred. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to let mine out too. It's not easy to explain, and none of this is easy to remember. But it's all real. I grew up with my mom. My father disappeared from my life after my parents split when I was young. My earliest memories are painted with the smell of alcohol, my mom's constant drinking. She had a rough childhood of her own, demons she never confronted. And when she drank, those demons didn't just whisper, they screamed. And they screamed at me. Her drunk nights weren't quiet sadness, they were chaos, absolute chaos. About once a month, she would stagger home late, already wasted, and the nightmare would begin. She'd shake me awake in the middle of the night, spit in my face, scream until her voice cracked. One moment, she'd call me worthless, saying that's why my dad and my grandma hated me. The next moment, she'd collapse into sobs, telling me I was all she had, that she loved me. This cycle stretched on until sunrise. Years of confusion, years of terror. Some of the worst memories come from when I was just 5. One night, she forced me to face the wall for hours, screaming behind me the whole time. If I moved, she hit me. If I cried, she hit harder. Sometimes she'd make me squat while pulling on my ears, humiliating me until I collapsed in pain, only for her to scream at me to keep going. But the worst was her sick little game. She would fake choking, collapsing to the ground like she was dead. I was 5, sobbing, begging her to wake up, trying everything to revive her. And then she would suddenly leap back to life, eyes blazing, only to strike me again. That stopped when she realized I no longer reacted. My fear had become numbness. As I grew older, the violence escalated. Screaming became knives slammed onto tables during fights with her boyfriends. No one was ever stabbed, but the sight of her white-knuckled grip on a kitchen knife is burned into my memory. I told no one. This was just my life, my normal. At school, I was a ghost. No friends, no social skills. I buried myself in video games. I got bullied daily and never fought back. Punishment was the only language I knew, so I accepted it. We moved constantly, 10 elementary schools in 4 different countries. Poland was the worst, not because of the people, they were kind, but because we lived with another wealthy alcoholic my mom was dating. More screaming, more chaos. By 10, the heaviness inside me had a name, though I didn't recognize it then: depression. And then came the breaking point. I was 15, winter, morning. I was getting ready for school when my mom stumbled in, still drunk from the night before. By then, I had stopped reacting to her. I was taller, stronger, emotionally shut down. She hated that. Her rage didn't pierce me anymore. But that morning, she went for the one wound still raw: my ex-girlfriend. The breakup was fresh, my first real relationship, and I blamed myself for ruining it. When my mom threw it in my face, something inside me broke. All the fear, all the years of humiliation boiled over. I snapped. It felt like I was outside myself, watching as I lunged at her, both hands wrapped around her throat. I drove her backward, forced her onto the bed, and squeezed with everything I had. And then it happened. I saw it. Fear. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my mother's eyes. The woman who had terrified me for over a decade was now terrified of me. Time stopped. Seconds or minutes, I'll never know. And then a voice in my head whispered, "Do you really want to do this?" I let go. That was my mistake. The second her throat was free, she fought back. She swung a chair at me, smashing my arms as I tried to block. Pain ripped through me. Then she sank her teeth into my arm, so deep the swelling later looked like a ping-pong ball beneath my skin. I ran. No shoes, no jacket, just pajamas in the freezing winter air. A neighbor called the police. When the officers arrived, I told them everything, except the part about me trying to strangle her. They saw the bruises, the bite marks, and took me into care. When they told her, she tried to spin her usual performance, crying, pretending to be the victim. But halfway through, she lost control and bit one of the officers. They arrested her on the spot. She was released later, but not without a heavy fine. I was placed in government care, and for the first time in my life, I felt safer. German CPS gave me an apartment, a stipend, and social workers who actually cared. But trauma doesn't vanish overnight. I drowned in depression, started drinking, and later that year, I tried to drown myself. That was my rock bottom. Life since has been a fragile climb upward. I still wrestle with nights where I want to vanish, nights filled with fantasies of revenge. But I've also had nights where music saved me. Music gave me something I never had before: a voice, a purpose, a reason to keep breathing. I became a musician. I don't care if I fail, I just care that I tried. As for my mom, things became complicated. At first, we rebuilt, slowly, painfully. She admitted to what she'd done. She quit drinking. For the first time, she showed effort. I apologized for my hands around her throat, and she forgave me. But then came another cruel twist: schizophrenia. It hollowed her out, body and mind. I watched her shrink into herself, her bones visible beneath skin, wearing a strange, delusional smile. She's back in our home country now, with family who care for her. I'm grateful, but she knows I still haven't fully forgiven her. She knows the scars never healed. It's been 6 years since that night, and I still carry the weight. That's my story. My nightmare, my survival, my strange inheritance. I've learned about pain, about survival, about growth. And though I wouldn't trade that perspective, it still haunts me. Cruelty often comes from broken people, and sometimes they can change. My mother is proof of that. But change doesn't erase the past. It only shadows it. So I chase what makes me feel alive, because life is too short to drown in misery. But even now, I know one truth I can never shake. That night, I could have killed her. And sometimes, when I lie awake, I wonder, what if I had? It's strange how certain choices, seemingly small, almost insignificant, can leave behind shadows that follow you for years. A little over 8 years ago, I found myself living a life that, on paper, looked perfect. I had been accepted into a combined medical degree program overseas, one fully recognized back in my home country. It was supposed to be the start of something great. The campus became my new world, and within weeks I had settled into a decent group of friends. Most of them were fellow medical students, except for one outsider, Steve. Steve had barely scraped through his undergraduate science degree, and although he wasn't officially part of our program, he somehow managed to worm his way into some of our classes. And just as quickly, he forced himself into our group. From day one, there was something unsettling about him. Every interaction felt like a contest, his eyes always scanning me, measuring me, as if trying to prove he was better. I was the only one who openly challenged him, mocking his arrogance or shutting down his nonsense. That made me his primary target. He played therapist to the girls, showering them with gifts and buying his way into their company. It was pathetic, but for a while, it worked. Eventually, though, everyone saw through him. His bitterness grew, especially as he barely scraped by academically. He was failing, angry, and always muttering about how no girl appreciated him despite how nice he was. His words revealed everything about him. A man entitled, desperate, and dangerous. 3 years later, when he failed his finals and had to repeat the year, most of us had already distanced ourselves. By then, Steve was a ghost hovering around campus, isolated, bitter, and stewing in his failures. I stayed away from him, but his hatred toward me only sharpened. That was when my life took an unexpected turn. I had fallen into a relationship, a sweet girl, kind, but too serious too quickly. She wanted a future together, introductions to her family, plans of settling down. I wasn't invested and was planning to leave her soon. But before I could, I got sick, dangerously sick, fever, exhaustion, bedridden. And that's when Steve made his move. He went to the university and reported that I had overdosed on hard drugs. That one lie ignited chaos. Police arrived, dragged me across the city in my weakened state, and threw me into a holding cell overnight because their drug testing machine was down. I vomited alone on cold concrete, dehydrated and half delirious, locked in a box I had no business being in. By morning, the test cleared me, completely clean. But I was left with nothing, no phone, no ID, no money. My girlfriend had to pick me up from the station like some criminal. A week later, I learned it was Steve who had reported me. I didn't react, not immediately. Instead, I watched. I waited. For 6 long months, I studied his every move. He had a routine. Friday nights, stumbling back from the club around 2 a.m., drunk and vulnerable. I knew exactly where he would be and when. One Thursday, when my girlfriend visited, I made sure of my alibi. The next night, dressed in black, I slipped outside and waited on a bench along Steve's path. When he staggered past, I pounced. No weapons, just fists. Blow after blow until he collapsed, limp and gasping. I laid him on the bench and ran back to my room, stashing the clothes away and pretending to sleep. Days later, word spread. Steve was in the hospital. That shocked me. I hadn't thought I'd gone that far. But apparently, after I left, someone else had found him. His wallet, phone, shoes, even his pants were stolen. And then, as if fate wanted to twist the knife, someone stabbed him in the leg. That part wasn't me. But if anyone had seen me that night, if Steve had guessed, everything could have come crashing down. I burned the clothes and said nothing. Still, the unease stayed with me.
2 months later, my girlfriend knocked on my door. She said we needed to talk. I braced myself for another conversation about our future. I was already planning to end things. But what she said froze me. She told me she had come by my dorm on a Friday night 2 months earlier. Yes, that Friday night. She knocked, but I wasn't there. She waited, worried, but said nothing. She admitted she had stayed quiet because she loved me, because she didn't want me in trouble. In that instant, I knew she had figured it out. She had pieced together exactly what I had done. And her silence was louder than any accusation. I stayed with her for 2 more years, out of fear and gratitude, until I graduated. Then I boarded the first flight back home, leaving everything behind. Looking back, I know my actions paint me in a dark light. I can accept that. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I tell it because it haunts me. Sometimes I laugh at the absurdity of it. Other times, I lie awake at night replaying every detail. Steve got what was coming to him. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe I went too far. Maybe fate punished him worse than I ever intended. But what lingers most is not the fight, not the blood, not the lie. It's the realization that my secret was never mine alone. She carried it too. And sometimes, when I think back, I can't shake one thought. What if she didn't stay quiet? What if she had told? That silence is what saved me, and it still terrifies me more than anything else.
From a very early age, I carried this gnawing feeling in my gut that my parents weren't built to last together. 4 separations during my childhood confirmed it, each one cutting deeper than the last. They were polar opposites from the start. My father was relentless, single-minded, consumed by building a business from nothing. He worked himself into the ground, physically and emotionally. At the time, I thought he was just distant, cold, uncaring. Now I realize his tireless drive was his way of showing love, building a legacy he could leave behind. But that love came wrapped in a hardened shell, with expectations that were impossible to meet, not just for himself, but for me and my mother. My mother, on the other hand, was everything he wasn't. Sensitive, deeply emotional, centered on me, the only child. She gave everything she had, every lesson, every ounce of care. But she needed something in return, emotional reciprocity, love that wasn't tied to work or sacrifice, and he simply wasn't wired that way. The breaking point came the day after my high school graduation. My mother just left, packed her things, walked out, and disappeared. In a strange way, I couldn't blame her, but the chaos it left in its wake was unlike anything I'd ever seen. My father, this rock of a man, shattered in front of me in ways I didn't know were possible. She never contacted him again. It was as if she had wiped us both from her life, desperate to start anew. College came and went. Successes, mistakes, parties, breakdowns. My father's love for my mother never waned. You could see it in everything he did. Raw, honest, heartbreaking. My mother, however, was gone. Emotionally, her path after leaving was littered with poor choices, bad relationships, decisions that left permanent marks. When my college graduation rolled around, I felt paralyzed. I couldn't imagine inviting them into the same room. I didn't want to force them into that uncomfortable space. So I didn't walk the stage. I watched from a distance as friends, classmates, even my girlfriend celebrated. Pride should have filled me,
but instead there was a hollow ache that gnawed at me. And then everything unraveled. My mother's life had already been precarious, but after my graduation, it plunged into darkness. I should have seen it coming. Maybe I did, but I refused to. And then she ended it. She went all the way. There is no softening that truth. I was 22. My mother was gone. Nothing prepares you for the finality of that. For a brief, strange moment, my father became everything I had wished he could be. We talked, we cried, we hugged. For the first time, he revealed the man behind the stoic shell. A strange peace settled over us, but it came at an impossible cost. And then life dealt one more cruel hand. My father had a routine surgery scheduled a few months later. Nothing major, they said, but fate is rarely so kind. He didn't survive. In an instant, 22 years of life with no parents. That kind of loss shapes you. It molds you. It haunts you. Yet somehow, I survived. It's been 5 years. I carry both their legacies, the compassion and heart of my mother, the drive and resilience of my father. Somehow, I never sank into the despair that so many might have expected. Maybe it's perspective, maybe it's stubbornness. But there is one thing I cannot forgive myself for. That graduation day, the day I chose not to walk. That moment could have been the first time in 4 years we were together, even if just for a couple of hours. I took that away, out of fear. Fear of drama, discomfort, the pull of raw emotion. I thought I was protecting everyone, but really, I was protecting myself. And that decision, it hangs over me like a shadow. Some actions are permanent. Some regrets are carved into you, never to be erased. That one belongs to me. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I imagine what could have been, what closure might have felt like, what healing might have begun. And I feel the cold weight of that choice pressing down, reminding me that some moments, once lost, can never return. It's a truth I carry daily. Life can be cruel, relentless, and unforgiving. And sometimes, the heaviest burdens we bear aren't what life dealt us. They're the choices we made in fear.